Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. It's David with Philippine American Couple. Today, I'm going to talk about money and finance and my plans for how we're going to deal with our finances from the U.S. into the Philippines. But first, if you would, please make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, which we greatly appreciate, and hit the alert bell and make any comments you like and give some suggestions or feedback. So, what I want to kind of talk about is banking in general or money management. I got a lot of notes. I've been doing research on this. Oh my goodness, maybe 4 or 5 years. And now that we're getting close to actually being in the Philippines, we hope to be there in the next 6 months or less. I wanted to really ramp up my effort to understand how to handle our money situation. First, let me give you a couple of disclaimers, okay? I'm not a banking expert. My wife tells me I'm not an expert in anything, so let's go with that. This is just information that I've learned. I want to encourage you to study, to learn, to call, to talk to people, and figure out what really is going to work for your best situation, because every situation is different. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. So do your own homework and come up with your own method. I'm just going to share with you what I know. Now, another thought I have is I've never been in the military, so I don't know the best thing for military guys or girls to do. I've been told that by a lot of military guys that they use like the Navy Federal Credit Union. It works really well for them, but I don't know enough to talk about that. Now, I want to say that for everybody who has served in any of our armed forces, we, Lorelei and I, greatly appreciate everything you've ever done. You know, it's because of your service, your dedication to us, that we are allowed to do what we want. We're allowed to make videos. We are able to travel the world. So, from the bottom of our heart, we greatly appreciate all of you guys for that. I'm hoping that this video will be an open discussion, something that will help you, motivate you to think and research and come up with good things. And if I've said anything wrong, if I get anything wrong, feel free to correct me. I'm not saying I'm an expert or I know everything. So when I look at banking or managing money in the Philippines, I kind of see it as this. I kind of see it in two different categories. So, um, so I have it kind of broke down into category one and a category two financial situation. Okay. Now I want to go over some of the common grounds for category one and category two, and then I'll get into the details about the two different categories. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some common ground. So let's talk a little bit about what's common between the two categories. All right, and let me tell you what those two categories are. So category one, I'm going to refer to as those with one source of funds or income, maybe like just Social Security check once a month. So I'm going to kind of consider that category one. Category two is going to be those people with maybe multiple sources. Maybe they got Social Security, maybe they got state retirement or some other annuities and revenue streams that are coming up. So that's like category two. So what's kind of in common about these two items or categories is this, guys. You're going to want to keep your money deposited into the United States banking system. Now, you got to keep in mind that if it is Social Security or a government benefit, then it has to go into a U.S. bank anyway. They're not going to send your money, as far as I know, to any bank in the Philippines, Thailand, or anywhere like that. And a couple of reasons why you want to keep your money in the United States banks is this. You know, the FDIC, which protects our money in the accounts, is much, much, much higher than in the Philippines system. They have their own FDI system, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but it's much lower than what we have here in the United States. So that's a big issue. The other thing to keep in mind, you know, I'm old enough to remember when a lot of people were putting money in the banks in Panama. And I remember when Panama went through a revolution and all of the money in those banks that belonged to people all over the world, Panama claimed for themselves. So the Philippines, I think, is a fairly stable country and it's a growing nation, but yet still hedging our bet, maybe it's better to be aware of that. So another common thread between these two categories is you're going to want to have an anchor point in the United States, somebody you can trust, somebody that can receive some mail for you and ship things to the Philippines for you if that is needed. And one of the reasons for this is, once again, like if you're on Social Security, of course, they're not going to be sending you mail to the Philippines. They're going to send it to a U.S. address. But more importantly, what's really common is if you have credit cards or bank cards that are from banks here in the United States, the United States, when your card expires, is not going to ship you a card to the Philippines. I've called a whole bunch of different banks and credit cards and asked them this question directly, and they've all said, no, we need a U.S. address to ship these to. So if you're living on a small amount of money and you're counting on your credit card to be your emergency fund to get out of the Philippines or medical funds, you got to remember that credit card expires, you no longer have it anymore. So those funds aren't available. And if the credit card company can't get you their new card and you can't activate it, then your account will go defunct. And part of what your base or your person here in the United States can help you with is you can have these cards shipped to them, then they can put them in like DLH shipping and have them over to you in a few days, maybe a week. It's going to cost you, but that's one thing your anchor point person can do. If you get other documents, they can scan them in and email them to you so you can check documents that may be hard copies. Because, like I said, Social Security doesn't send you emails, they send you hard copies. So now we've established that we have bank accounts in America. So that's common. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is open up a bank account in the Philippines. Now, you got to be in the Philippines to do this. But understand that you got to go in person. The rules have been changing a little bit about the banks and opening accounts in the Philippines. Before, anybody could go into a bank and open up an account. Well, now you need to show maybe your permanent residency card, your new Philippine driver's license, proof that you're actually living there. So they've switched that up a little bit in the last few years. So you got to prove that you actually live in the Philippines for most banks. Now, some of those smaller country banks, maybe they don't do that, but the big national banks in the Philippines will ask you, for proof of that, including your passport and your visas. So another thing I would do is I would take checks from your United States bank accounts with you to the Philippines. And now you're not going to be able to write checks in the Philippines, but what you can do is use that to transfer large sums of money. So you could write a check into your Philippine bank account for 5, 10, 20, 50,000, whatever you need to do to get money into those accounts if you're going to purchase a home, whatever it may be. Now, the other key factor, the common thing here would be to understand that if your debit card expires or your Visa card, checking account card expires, it's going to take you a good month or better to get a new card from your bank. So if you have paper checks, you can write a check, deposit it in the account, and it may take 3 weeks to get processed, but at least you know for sure that money's going to get into that Philippine account. when you've lost your debit card or your Visa card, or it's expired and you can't get one for a couple of months. So writing a check is not fast, but it is another way to get funds back into your account, at least within a few weeks, so that you have that going for you. One little tip is this. You're going to want to probably open up, and this is kind of what we plan on doing, open up a US dollar account bank in the Philippines and 2 peso accounts. Now, there's a lot of guys out there that have 2 pesos accounts, and here's why they have that. So let's say that, and let me just say this. So you have, what do we want to call these? Direct withdrawals or monthly payments in the Philippines. So let's say you're going to buy a car and you're going to have it automatically taken out of your peso account, right? So what we want to do is have a peso account just kind of for those monthly withdrawals, because we don't want to leave that account wide open with so much money in it that maybe the car dealership does something funky and they would take out 10 payments at once. So what we want to leave them is enough money to make those payments. So this could be think of it as a peso payables account. Your other peso account can hold your monthly income or your budget, So maybe you got $1,500 a month. You're going to keep that into peso account number 1. You got $200 coming out for a car payment. So therefore, maybe you transfer $225 into that. And the car dealership or the finance company can't accidentally go in and take out all of your money. The dollar account will allow you to, if you want to put US dollars into it, just to leave it into that and you can transfer later. So it's another way of protecting the US dollars, if your US dollars, versus converting them into pesos and that exchange rate. So a lot of folks may put money into a dollar account, and then when it's in your favor financially, conversion rate wise, you can take it out and go and get yourself pesos. So I kind of look at it like this, guys. Category 1, your money finances are going to be pretty straightforward. So maybe you, like I said, you got, a 1 monthly, you have no annuities or no investments, and it's just pretty much one check going into a US bank, and then you're going to get your money back into the Philippines. Most US bank cards, right? Your withdrawal card, your Visa card, your debit card, whatever you want to call it, ATM card, will work if you tell your bank you're in the Philippines. You got to tell them first, hey, I'm traveling, I'm going to go in the Philippines. They need to know this. And if you only tell them 3 months and you say 6, you better call them before the 3 months is up and tell them. Or otherwise, they're going to click it off and you're not going to be able to use it. So make sure your bank knows where you're at and what you're doing. But most banks, U.S. accounts, will only let you take out about anywhere from $300 to $1,000 ATM withdrawal a day. So that's pretty good. But if you need more than that, you got to really, really plan ahead. You got to just think about that. Also, for you guys in category 1, you need to make sure that you get a savings account going in the Philippines, because you're going to have emergency pop up. And you're not going to be able to count on your credit card. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe your card's expired, your account is defunct now. So that safety net that you thought credit card wise is gone. Open up an account, your peso account number 1. You can put your money in there and save it and generate it and keep yourself a nice nest egg. All right, so let's talk or transition into category 2. Category 2, once again, I look at people that have multiple streams of revenue or funds. My suggestion, and remember, you guys got to figure out what works best for you, but my plan is I am going to have those streams of money. So let's say you got 2 streams of money. Maybe you got a state retirement and you got your Social Security retirement. I'm going to recommend that you put your Social Security in one account and your state retirement into a different U.S. bank accounts. So maybe you choose Charles Schwab, which I'm a fan of for this, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Also maybe Citi Bank, but you have those money going to different different bank accounts in the U.S. One, it's the old adage, right, where your grandma, my grandmother said, well, don't put all your eggs in one basket because if you drop the basket, all the eggs break. Well, kind of the same thing. If all your money is going in one account, and let's say something goofy happens and the bank freezes your account, well, then all of your money is frozen. I'm going to encourage you to divide and conquer, so to speak. Now, you're also going to want to choose banks that repay your ATM fees. Charles Schwab does that. So they reimburse you. And there's a few others out there, but Charles Schwab, they will reimburse you for all your ATM fees. You might also want to think about a bank that can allow you to do large electronic deposits. And let me explain this. So, for instance, a local bank where I live, which is called Regions Bank, if I want to deposit anything more than $6,000 in a day, I have to go to the bank and physically do that. I cannot use my iPhone or anything to electronically deposit it. I can't snap a picture of it and send it in. Can't do it. Charles Schwab account, they don't care. I can deposit as much as I want electronically. So that's something to keep in mind if you have the sale of a house coming to you or the sale of a car and you got a large check coming and you need to do that. Choose a bank that's going to allow you to do that. My like Regions, for instance, if I deposited $5,000, that $5,000 I can't touch for a week to 10 days. A bank like Charles Schwab, usually the first $5,000 or $6,000 is available immediately, and you may have to wait, 3 to 5 days for the rest of the check to get into the bank for your money. If I want to literally transfer $50,000 from my Regions account to my Philippine bank, okay, let's say I'm going to do that. Well, I literally have to go into my local bank because, Regions Bank is, and what I mean by local is geographically local. And so it's down here in the South, okay? So that one of those banks I actually have to go physically into and do the paperwork to transfer large sums of money. Now, banks such as Citi, Charles Schwab, and others, you can do it electronically from wherever you're at in the world and transfer large sums of money. Once again, there's usually a little waiting period, but you can get it done without having to visit the bank. And so something else I found out, folks, is this. I've talked to Citi personally, and I've talked to Charles Schwab. I've talked to these banks personally to get this information. So Citi explained to me that they have branches in the Philippines, or locations, sorry. Let me change that. They have locations in the Philippines. But the American Citibank and the Philippine Citibank is not the same bank. And this makes sense when you think about it, because each bank has to fall under that country's rules of banking. So Citi US has that rules that they have to follow. In the Philippines, it's the same thing. But they're kind of under the same umbrella. We're on the same tree. What I did learn from talking to them is I can open my Citi account here in the United States and deposit large sums of money and transfer money, do all of those wonderful things, get credit cards from them if I want to, all of that good stuff. In the Philippines, I have to once again go to a Citi bank in the Philippines in person, open an account. Once I get that established, Citibank told me that I can literally transfer any amount of funds to the Philippines I want easily without any cost, any expenses. So from Citibank to Citibank, you can transfer that really easily. Keep in mind, there's not very many locations of the Citibank yet in the Philippines. I think there's just a handful of them, Cebu and Manila. All right, so one other little thing to touch on about this is, you can take currency to the Philippines if you want. If you want to carry money to the Philippines, you can. So, if you don't know, there's a $10,000 limit without having to declare it when you leave the country. So you can take anything under $10,000 per individual, and you don't have to declare it. Now, knowing that we can transfer money really easy from bank to bank, you can use PayPal into PayPal, you can use Zoom Western Union. Oh my God, there's all kinds of ways to transfer money into bank accounts or to people that you don't really need to carry a large amount of cash. I wouldn't encourage that because one, if you lose it, you get robbed. You're just out the money. So when you travel over there, just take what is comfortable for you. But just keep that in mind. Part of what I think some of the keys to banking in the Philippines is in financial management is you're going to really want to think ahead. So when we go there this summer or late spring, whenever we get there, guys, as soon as we kind of get settled in, so let's say 3 months after being there, we get serious about wanting to buy a house. Well, I'm going to go, okay, now that I know that that's what we're going to do, I'm going to start transferring money into an account so that I can have easy access to that cash. Same thing with a car, whatever it may be. You got to think a little bit ahead and try not to have emergencies, which I know is hard, but just keep that in mind. Let's think ahead about this, and that will help us manage our money. One other little advice, I touched on savings in the Philippines before. I would encourage you to save 25% at least of your monthly income, as a safety net, not only just for the Philippines, but for medical, for all of that stuff. I think it's important for everybody to save, 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 and keep some money back. I know it's all over the internet where you can live in the Philippines really, really cheap. And some people say, no, you can't live for $10 a month. So the honest truth about how much money do you need in the Philippines to live is up to you. If you want to live a Filipino lifestyle and you're not in one of the big cities, you can easily live on $1,000 a month, but you're going to live like a Filipino. You're not going to live like an American. If you want to get drunk every day and chase women, you're going to be broke at the end of the month. So $1,000 sounds like a lot in the Philippines, and it is for the Philippine people. But for Americans that go there or expats in general, I don't know about that. I believe that if you have, $2,000 a month, let's say, in income, you can live like a king depending on where you choose to live. If you're going to live in downtown Cebu, on a high rise or downtown Manila for $2,000 a month, you're not going to be a king. But if you live in the outskirts, you find a nice beach community, you can live for $2,000 a month very well, put money away, and have the things that you like. So that's my thought on that. But you got to decide for yourself, what lifestyle do you want? I want you guys all to live within your means, so that you can truly enjoy the beauty and the wonders of the Philippines. I don't want anybody to go over there and be broke at the end of the month, praying and hoping that their Social Security gets there. So I touched on this a little bit earlier about the FDIC. So in the Philippines, they have their own program. It's called PDIC, right? PDIC provides a maximum deposit insurance coverage of $10,000. Okay, just $10,000. Now, and it doesn't matter if you have 10 accounts in one bank, you're only covered for 10,000. If you have one account in that bank, it's covered for 10,000. So if you got a bunch of money spread out, you think you're going to get coverage for each account at 10 grand, that's not going to happen. It's 10 grand period. Versus in America, we have up to $250,000 security in our bank accounts here. That's why I'm encouraging you to leave your larger sums of money into the American banks, because it's more protected. My last few tips is this. We should avoid using the small rural banks. They don't have the financial backing necessarily to cover debts and issues that may come up. They may be convenient, but they're also going to have more problems with their ATM machines being out of cash. So you're going to want to pick a big bank like BDO or CITA or whatever's over there versus these small community banks. And those banks can close at a whim. They can, literally shut down, and you have to fight to get your $10,000, or they can literally just have whatever hours they want to have. I encourage you to go do your own research. talk to other people about it, other people that live there, what they do, how they do it, what works for them. Oh, here's something that came up the other night in one of our live streams. One of the suggestions that we all came up with when you're sending money to the Philippines. So maybe you're using Western Union. What I'm going to encourage you to do is to rotate. Maybe you pick Western Union, Zoom, MoneyGram, whatever the options are for sending cash to the Philippines. Because it seems like from everybody I've talked to over the years, and ourselves, we got in the same predicament with Western Union. We used Western Union for over 7 years. Then all of a sudden we got bit hard by Western Union and we've had to quit using them. So my suggestion is let's rotate. Use Western Union a few times, then use Zoom a few times, maybe use PayPal. What are options Remitly? Use those, but rotate around instead of sticking with one account all the time. Look, we appreciate you guys. We hope that you will subscribe to our channel, give our videos a thumbs up, hit the alert bell, and if there's anything that you guys would like to say that I got wrong, please hit me up in the comments. Any further suggestions for us, that you guys may be doing in the Philippines already, let me know. This is an open discussion is how I want to treat this. So once again, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. We hope that you enjoy your day, and we will see you next time here on Philippine American Couple. Take care, guys.